Welcome back to Kinky Knots Cafe. Proactive is the way. Proactive is the Way is a podcast brought to you by two sisters who dove into the health and wellness industry, one planned and the other by fate. We have joined forces to bring to you authentic conversations about our personal experiences as it relates to managing our health, working within the industry, and taking our combined knowledge to share with you some pearls of wisdom that you can take with you to live the best version of you. Every 2 weeks, we will host an episode. And each month, we'll focus on a topic that is designed to increase an awareness of tools and resources to enhance an aspect of your mind, body, and spirit. Today, we are continuing our conversations on principles. During our last episode, we laid down our laws of the land, our principles. We identified our top 5 non-negotiables that we abide by in our efforts to manage our lives. Just to share a couple, Tiffany, she highlighted how it's so important that she surrounds herself with role models, those she admires, to learn and grow from their knowledge and expertise. She also shared that in whatever she does, she wants to possess a sense of servitude. I focused on striving to live in and appreciate the present moment. Why? To minimize depression, because that typically is what occurs when you focus on the past, and staving off anxiety by focusing on that which has yet to come. In focusing on the present, I will be able to be laser focused and devote my time and energy into my current endeavors. I also shared that I want to ensure that in all things, I trust the process by having faith over fear, making sure I don't live with a scarcity mindset where I hoard information, preventing others and even myself from growth and development. Essentially, pursue each endeavor with vigor because, quite frankly, you guys, there is enough. We all can have a piece of the pie, provided we work for it. There will always be enough. So while Tiff and I, we possessed different principles, there was one that really tied us together, and that was self-care. It is critical that we take care of self so that we will possess enough stamina and love to pour into our projects and into others. Of course, in our efforts to better understand the things that we value, we also wanted to understand, hey, what do others value as it relates to their own principles? So we decided to select a memoir and determine if we could pull some principles that would help us to optimize our principles or identify new ones that we didn't think about. So Tiffany made the suggestion that we read You Owe You, Ignite Your Power, Your Purpose, Your Why by Eric Thomas. So Tiffany, I'm going to start off because I want to give you all the kudos for this selection.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I really love this book. Definitely a 5 stars for me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I want to get your why did you select this book? And talk to me a little bit about, if you connected with the author. What about his story made you feel so connected?
About his story and reading about him. Well, let me just back up. The reason I chose this author, one, is because, of course, he was African American, and I was deliberately searching for an opportunity to give a little bit of feedback on more authors that I identify with. Now, the author, I heard his voice on a rap song, and he was the speaker in it, but what he ended up saying at the end of the artist's rap was he told the story of a guru, and was talking about when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. This was like one of the choruses or the loops in the artist's song, and it was just so relevant, so appropriate. But I didn't know that he was an author. I didn't know he was a motivational speaker or anything. But as I'm looking back, I almost feel like I've met him before. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So what about his story that I connected with was the success part, of course, just because I believe in a lot of what he was able to communicate. I believe that it's relevant. And it was contemporary, like it's never going to age what he's talking about. And he was able to present it in such a not simple, and I don't get me wrong, I like messages that have depth, but when people are able to, their presentation is simple, and I know that more than just myself gets it, I feel more comfortable with that kind of author or that kind of communicator, motivational speaker that connects me. Now, am I able to understand like abstract concepts? I don't feel like when you're trying to better yourself and you're looking for principles and things to identify with that are positive, that are going to make you successful, I don't think they have to be so abstract in explanation. And so I think that was the other thing that connected to me. One, he was Black. Two, he knows how to speak to a variety of audiences. And I think we'll probably go into depth with that. But, and he was able to do it in a way and stay authentic to himself as well. So that would be the third thing that attracted me to searching for him. And once I made the connection that, oh, this is the guy in the rap song, I was like, yeah, we should read him.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm glad you chose it because I never heard of him before, but I have seen him. Yes, when I saw his video, I was like, oh, I've seen this guy. That's him, so but yes, his story.
And he's been out like 30 years.
I know, but that's really bad though. I was like, where have I been? What?
And he doesn't have that presence. Like he's not a part. His name doesn't get thrown around like Cornel West or Michael Eric Dyson when he has the same or Les Brown, because he legitimately is as intelligent as these people who we know, like,
well, I think also
he's so connected, but he's not.
His image and what he caters to and who you just kind of highlighted is part of that more seasoned generation.
Their suits.
They're the suits.
But not Michael Eric Dyson. Michael Eric Dyson is very similar to him. Michael Eric Dyson can tell you probably every hip hop song there is and knows all the lyrics to them. And he's so creative. He knows how to like integrate them into something he's speaking about. Anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's why
I'm learning. I live in a whole different world, folks. a whole different world. But I was really happy that you chose him. I love reading him. And I told you how I flex in the morning on 2 different levels. Every morning, I couldn't wait to get up on my bike and start reading him. And literally 45 minutes would go by without, pouring down sweat, a chapter read, done. And he was that captivating. And he doesn't highlight them as principles all throughout, but his story and the messages that he just shared, those pearls that we talk about of wisdom, that he just dropped them every day. And I was just like, man, yeah. So
there was substance in each one of his chapters.
In each one, and he had a story behind each point, right? So today we are actually going to cover, last week we had talked about our 5 principles, and I thought we'd keep it simple. We'll talk about 5 principles that we found valuable in this book. Once again, he doesn't highlight them as principles. We kind of had to pull them out. And as we're going through this, I just want our audience to be aware that I've shared this before. We will never be able to fully cover all the pearls of wisdom in this book and do it justice. And so we do strongly encourage you, please, if you have a moment, this is definitely an opportunity to have some me time. And take about, 10 minutes a day, if you can devote an hour and just suck up this book, because it is rich. It is full of goodness. All right. So make sure that you buy the book. And what do you say, Tiffany? Make sure you
read the book.
I know folks like to skim or listen, right? Because if you're an auditory,
you can listen to it too.
You can also listen to it and have the same impact. I prefer to read and then follow up with listening. But you have to do what works for you. So we do have this book. It is out there on the Kinky Knots Cafe approved site. So if you haven't been out there, you can go to www.kinkyknotscafe.com and just click on the KK Cafe approved logo and you'll get access to it. All right. So in the book, all right, I just want you to understand that we'll get to do a personal dive into Eric's plight to success. As you shared, Tiffany, he starts off by covering his background, whereby he went from choosing to be homeless. This is a choice he made, folks, to choosing success. And he walked us through what he valued and the principles he leveraged to help him make decisions and use as his compass to find his true north. So before we begin, let's make sure that our audience understands what is a principle. Principle. So I took this definition right out of Oxford's dictionary. So Oxford explains that a principle is a fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of beliefs or behaviors, or for a chain of reasoning. Reasoning, which means the action of thinking about something in a logical and sensible way. So in the book, Eric highlighted that, or how he defined it, was that a principle are things that are non-negotiable. These are things that you are not willing to compromise on, the things that keep your values in place. Now, at the end of the book, you really don't get to understand what does Eric value. You can read through and kind of pull it out, but at the end, he shared out of everything that he shared what his core principles are. And he focused on his non-negotiables. And some of those were, actually, he had only 3 he shared. He stated, I will not engage in any activities or events that involve drinking, smoking, gambling, or doing drugs.
I did not hear him say that.
Yeah. At the end,
But I can see that. I mean, he's a preacher or a pastor.
A Seventh-day Adventist, right?
Oh yeah. They
Yeah.
don't even eat meat, I don't think.
Yeah. They minimal amount, right?
Or it has to be beef, not pork, something like that.
Yep. They don't eat pork, right? But his wife, his number two principle he stated was his wife is his priority and must travel with him wherever his speaking engagements take him. I was like, oh wait, chivalry is not dead.
Right. He does that, so there's no temptation.
Right. That too. That's actually what I thought about. I was like, he's probably, because you know how you can be when you're traveling, all types of temptation. Right. But it's also that support, right? So he gets into an environment where he might not feel comfortable. He has that, his strength to lean on.
Right.
That will support him through anything. Number 3, quiet time. He says every day he has to spend quiet time where he prays, meditate, and reflect before he shares himself with the world. And what do we talk about, right? That's like one of our primary principles, self-care.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult to pour into others when your cup is empty, right? So I like that. And so those were kind of what he focused on at the very end. He highlighted those principles. But as I mentioned, while these were verbalized by Eric as his core principles, we did notice that his book was a myriad of principles that could help us in our efforts to refine or develop our own principles. So let's dive into the top 5 that helped us to derive, and these are really top 5 statements. And Tiffany had actually shared these. I was like, oh, perfect, Tiff, thanks. That's what we're going with. That's what we're going with. Thank you, girl. But the top 5 points that helped us to derive some principles that Eric shared in this book. All right. So we'll get started. We'll just go through them one by one and we'll give our thoughts behind it. The first one that Tiffany had shared was, when you want to succeed, as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. So Tiffany, help me to understand, what principle did you pull out of this? How do we formulate this into a principle?
Well, it's very similar to, and I'm just going to use my position as, a nurse practitioner when I'm talking with patients, and they come in and 3 months prior, their A1C, which is a 3-month average of someone's blood sugars. But it's also a value that we use to determine whether or not someone is pre-diabetic versus diabetic. And, this patients come 3 months prior, their A1C is 14. Normal is less than 5.7. And so, we make a diagnosis of diabetes at 6.5. Well, when talking to some patients, when you're trying to say, hey, we need to correct this, otherwise you're going to have, cardiovascular problems, other complications as a result of your diabetes, blindness, trying to communicate to them. And then, what I finally realized I had to start adding was, in order to see their success, is you have to depend as if your life depends on this. And a lot of the things that we do, we may be passionate about it, but we don't do them as if life depends on it. Like, because think about it, like you could just be gone tomorrow. You don't have to suffer an illness. You don't have to, there would be no exaggerated or dramatic exit. You could just exit, and do you really want to leave this life having not put life into what it is you wanted to succeed at, if that makes sense? I don't know. I don't want to go all over the place with it, but I mean, it's just straightforward. It's a very straightforward principle. There's really not many different principles you can get out of it if you understand that your life has to depend on your success or you becoming successful. Like your life has to depend on it.
Yeah. For me, I thought about urgency, right? This is where we need to have a sense of urgency with regards to our life. And although it's not word for word, but the first thing that came in my head when I read this, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. It made me think about how when we first get a notion to do something, right? When our intuition says, this is the direction to go, right? We should learn to feel that and then do it. And I'll tell you, from my own personal story that in this quote that I'm sharing with you, and everything you do, intuit, feel it, and then do it. And do it with urgency, with vigor. It came, from my partner. He actually said this to me, which got me moving. What legacy are we going to leave? We're not
really, we're taught a lot of things, but we're not really taught that growing up, right?
No.
And we don't have to attach it to being Black or white, any color or anything. I think just in general, we are not taught that.
Yeah. And so
and it's really a life skill.
It is a life skill. And we're not taught it unless you have parents, right, who have lived this, who have breathed this. This is kind of how their mode of operation. But a lot of us don't come from that background. Like you and I, we came from, blue collar worker. I remember mommy in college getting her, or when we were growing up, getting her degree. She was still kind of trying to figure out who she wanted to be, etc. And so, we was taught was in our household was you got to go to school, you got to get an education, you better graduate, but there wasn't anything that continued after, it was just a lot about what we needed to do to get out of high school is what I remember. And then when we started talking about college, and they're like, yes, absolutely, definitely, you got to go to college. But yeah, so when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. And so in this, in everything you do, the moment that you intuit, the moment it hits your mind, the moment it's there and it says to you, Toya, this is your gift. Feel that and then do it. Right. And I will tell you, for a long time, I hesitate. I'll tell you right now, I hesitate on everything I do. I overanalyze to the point where I am paralyzed. I've always been that way. And what's interesting, and it made me think about Proverbs 18, verse 18, chapter 18, verse 16. And let me back up. I think I did that because I was fearful, right? I didn't know where I was going, how I'm going to get the resources, etc. So I would always be gifted with a lot of ideas, but I would stop myself from feeling it. I would stop myself from doing it because of that fear. And so going back to the quote, chapter 18, verse 16, it says, a man's gift maketh room for him and bringeth him before great men. And when I reflected on that verse, I kept saying to myself, why would we ever fear doing what we intuit? We intuit because it is something innate. It is something within us that we have the possibility and the capabilities to do. And when it's there, that is you don't need no one to tell you to go. You need to just move, right? You need to move. And so I appreciate that verse. The other quote in the book that he brought up, Eric brought up, he stated, there is no substitute for your own drive and desire. If you don't have that fire, if you don't have that dog, is what he called it, you're not going to accomplish anything. You to have focus. You to have a dream. You to go out there and make it happen. Right? And you already shared the story that he shared. I like that, right? That story. It's not his story, right? I was trying to figure out, I was like, well, whose story is this? The one with the guru, right?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was his. No, it was somebody else he was talking about.
Yeah, it's not his story, but I mean, he brought it up. He and the world grabbed onto it based on his delivery, which is amazing, you know, because it really does. It really does speak to you, that story he shared, you know, that secret to success, you know. And so I like that, you know, that whole story. I liked how it helped us to really understand the importance of we only got one life. And when we get messages or communications that this is the direction we should go in, leveraging our gifts of discernment, move, right? Jump, as they like to say. All right. So principle number 2, be your authentic self. And here I thought to myself, I was like, I wanted to help me to understand, Tiffany, what principle, I mean, is it just that, be your authentic self, or is there anything you can add to help formulate it into a more
I believe that you know, when it says being your authentic self, that again, most of his principles were so straightforward that they didn't require additional explanation. However, being your authentic self allows you to deliver a message or present a message that's compelling, that's more compelling when you are your authentic self, right? Like you penetrate through, you know, barriers that people who, you know, say have scripts, you know, created for them to deliver or to present. But in this author's case, he didn't have to do that because this is who he was. And what he did was he told a story about when he first started and he still didn't know who he was, or how much value, actually monetary value, he should put on himself. So when he was talking about this, there was a non-negotiable that he had was that he's not presenting or conveying a message unless he gets to wear his t-shirt, his hat, and his jeans, because that was him, that was his brand. Mm-hmm. So he tells of how his administrative assistant had gotten a call from a really big company, and or they had called a big company, and I think at that point he was asking for 10,000. Mm-hmm. And there was like, oh, but we just have one request, that he comes in a suit. And he told his administrative assistant, like, no, I'm not. I absolutely will not present, unless I have my t-shirt, my hat. Because honestly, I started thinking like, wow, they were going to take him out of his element. Like, what if they're the detractor or the distractor? Like, they're the ones that,
to
they're
show
they're the tester, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To get to make you more vulnerable than you would have to be, mm-hmm. because now he's going to be vulnerable in a suit, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to have this expectation, which wouldn't have been real, and then his message would have fallen short, mm-hmm. For what he was trying to, do. So after that, he talks about how that never happened again, because once he had established and said, this is who I am, then mm-hmm. people were like, okay, we want the person that's going to show up like who he or she is. And so they started paying him what he was worth and more, because he didn't fall for the okie doke with the one. He was like, well, I wasn't in this anyway to make money to begin with. And I've been to places where I didn't have much money. So I'm okay with that, as long as I get to remain, Eric Thomas. So from that lesson, what that taught me was, if because I don't want to say that, because I was going to say, if that's the way you talk, then talk that way. I mean, you still
have to know your audience. But if it's been effective, if it's been effective, which he's been very effective in many different environments, because by this time, when they're asking him to wear a suit, he had already been in the game, I think, for what he said, 20 years or something, 18, 20 years. And so he's like, I've already
established myself of who I am and what I bring to the table, and I'm still having to prove myself. I have nothing to prove.
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Yeah. I mean, he turned down a $10,000 payday. And I was like, all hands clapping for him. But yes, because why do I need to change who I am to make you comfortable? I mean, think about that. Why do I have to walk around uncomfortable?
Right.
So that you can feel better about yourself.
Well, that's the reason why. So that we are all synonymous. We are all in the same uniform. That's the reason why in Catholic schools you wear a uniform. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or private schools you wear a uniform.
Right.
Everybody has this uniformity. Nobody feels threatened by anyone else's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and an element of that, I do understand, right? An element of that I do understand. But when you are crafting and designing yourself, really and truly, and I talked about this, I think in our first episode, we definitely have got to get out of that Borg society mentality, because it just leads to us being very unprogressive. The other point I just wanted to make here is I truly love the fact, he's all about staying true to yourself. Stay true to yourself in all that you do, and make sure that any endeavor that you take on, it's aligned with who you are. Right. And you gave the story, so thank you for giving the story, but I'm going to read a quote that I pulled from the book that I really, really appreciated. And it was more around miracles when you are authentic. How miracles tend to come when you're being the most you. And he talked about, if you've identified your superpower and are walking along your path of purpose, it means that you are on your way to discovering and honoring your innermost you. But it's important to remember this. When you're seeking opportunities, it's possible that you may feel you have to be a certain thing or act a specific way or perform a kind of role in order to get an opportunity. And I was sharing with you earlier before we even started, this is something I do kind of see all the time when people use their gifts of foresight, right? They use their gifts of foresight to become someone that they probably were never designed or destined to be. And they are forcing themselves to act like somebody else. And they're not being truthful to who they truly are, really betraying themselves and thus signaling to the world that they are not comfortable within their own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I see people do this and I think to myself, we see this. We can feel this. We can feel when you are not authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, whether, they're conscious of it or not, we see it, right? And we respond to it in the way that we respond. So it's very important that when you are being your most authentic version of yourself, understand that opportunities are suited to you, opportunities that are your gifts will begin to come to you. They will begin to come to you. And if I go back up to what I shared before, your gift, it will make room for you. But you have to pursue it, and you have to pursue it with vigor and have faith over fear. Make sure you understand and that you will be guided, but you must walk the path that is destined for you. Right? Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that. Yeah. The principle number 2, good selection, be your authentic self. It is so, so important. Let's dive in here real quick. Principle number 3. And you had shared, and this quote that you had was surrounding yourself with who and what you aspire to be like. And I took this to, your network is your net worth. You ever heard that quote? Your network is your net worth, right?
Right.
So why did you choose this one?
So I learned this a long time ago. And I said this 2 weeks ago because our dad used to say this to me all the time because I was like one of those, I'm like a teeter-totter. So I was one of those, or excuse me, in biblical sense, like a straddler of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
So I like duplicity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's ultimately what I would have to like doing the type of stuff that I did. I did enough to get in trouble, and then I did enough to get out of it. Like, so
Very
what?
balanced. Very balanced.
So surrounding yourself with who and what you aspire to be. So this is always going to be a powerful saying to me because I feel like in our lives we need frames of reference and we need very strong words of wisdom, pearls that sit in our mental Rolodex, right? At any time I could flip it. And this one has always, I mean, it's like tattooed on the inside of my brain. And not when I'm getting ready to make a poor decision or because I've had or I've reflected on, poor decisions. that could have ultimately led me down a path where I would be around people I did not aspire to be with because of my actions and behaviors. Not so without going into detail, if you want to be that doctor, surround yourself around doctors. If you want to be a lawyer, surround yourself around lawyers. It just doesn't matter, whatever it is you want to be, and hopefully it's positive. Because I'm hoping nobody out there is like, I want to be a murderer, I'm going to go to jail and surround myself with murderers. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that's nobody's aspiration, but I imagine it is because I worked in a jail too.
Yes.
It could be. They want to be a gangster, so they're going to go hang around with gangsters.
Absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, it is a real thing. Anyway, so that was going to be not a good point. But anyway, it's just, again, straightforward. Surrounding yourself with who and what you aspire to be, the end. Like, I don't think there's much more to that. But what I am hoping is that most choose something positive. Whatever it is you aspire to be, that it's a positive and it's creating positive experience for those around you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. In this sense, you want to be selective, and make sure that we're choosing a network that inspires us and helps in our own personal development. And once you kind of identified the direction that you want to go, no different than you and I, for example, because the health industry is not my industry, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up in business and human resources and working in the world of finance and technology, et cetera. And then, fate took me in another direction, but I was like, I need to hang around Tiff, because Tiff know all about this. I'm calling Tiff,
Oh, is that what y'all doing?
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, because you have to, and especially if you want to propel yourself exponentially in a particular industry or field, it only makes sense that you partake in an organization. You can take in what's a medical organization, or there's all these different professional networks that you can participate in to help build your expertise.
And not only that, it's a good addition, and he said it too. I believe he said this as well. I didn't write this one down, but he mentioned how things that don't grow die. Mm-hmm. So you don't grow, you experience no growth if you're not building a network, or you don't have a network. Mm-hmm. You don't grow.
Right.
You become stagnant.
Yeah, because the reality is we have, and I think I said it in our last podcast, we have that seen and unseen forces who help us. And if we don't get ourselves out there, even if it is exhausting, I was thinking, as I was saying that, introverts just popped in my head, like, Toya, what about us? But really, you have to really put yourself out there. And what's beautiful is nowadays with technology, you don't have to go full-fledged out there, right? We can do things through Zoom, meeting invites, so you're in the comfortability of your own home, but you're still garnering knowledge and connecting with people. So there's ways that we can still stay true to kind of our how we want to engage socially, but also making sure that we are getting ourselves out there, making sure that we are learning and growing from one another. So, okay. I wanted to end with regards to this principle, a quote that he had within the book. He had shared, attracting the right people. Mm-hmm. It's also about surrounding yourself with people who are successful at what they do, no matter what field they're in. Mm-hmm. People who are passionate and profitable in their professional lives will have lessons to share with you. And just by being in a new environment with new people, you'll hear new modes of thought, new words, and new perspectives on life and work. Even if they don't apply to your particular interest, knowing how other people think, both here and in other parts of the world, is valuable in shaping your own way of thinking and your own way of doing business. And so that's the other side, right? Not only making sure that you get within your industry, learn within your industry, but that you also diversify your knowledge, right? Which is a lot about what we're doing here with Proactive is the Way, diving into different authors, diving into different modes of thought, etc., to help us shape and guide us so that we are developing optimally, holistically, right? So I do like that. So making sure that we not only are focusing on our industry, but also diversifying our perspective. All right. So did you have anything else to add there with the principle number 3?
No,
All right. So the principle number 4, know your worth, right? And how would you sum this up?
Wow, the way he discussed it was like he knew but he didn't know. Like when he had to put a monetary value on it, like he knew because he kept on with his vision, he kept on with all his passions, like no matter what. It didn't even
whether he got paid or not.
Whether he got paid or not. And he also mentions how he was working a lot of times for free, giving out his information, giving out his proprietary information for free. But anyway, because ultimately his gift and his talent was his voice. But knowing your worth, wow, that's a loaded, it's really very, it's complex.
Well, because it's not just about monetary worth, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It is about those things that you are unwilling to compromise, the non-negotiables.
Yep.
Right. So when you know your worth, you don't negotiate these items. Like it's never and you watch powerful people do this, right? Like Trump, he will never negotiate his non-negotiable of being an asshole. He's always,
that's my boy.
That's what he's gonna be. He's going to be intentionally what is it when you divide people? The word divisive. He's gonna be intentionally divisive because he knows his work. Y'all not about to take nothing from me. Is basically what he's saying, and he's challenging, he's challenging that each and every step. Like, so knowing your worth is, it's not a dollar amount. It's about those non-negotiables. It's about your morals, values, things that you will not allow to compromise your integrity.
Yeah.
Things not absolutely like when all of this, all of these school shootings and things that started happening. And then there was like, oh, we have a no tolerance policy now for bullying. And then that's, that whole campaign started coming out back when all this bullying and stuff was going to school. So that's the same way you have to be when you know your worth. I have a no tolerance policy for ABC, XYZ. I'm not, there's absolutely, of course you're tactful about it. Of course you are.
Absolutely.
Of course you're, so.
Yeah, and you have to know your core values, and when you know your core values, you incorporate them, you will leverage those values in all that you do. Right. And that helps you to stay on course too, right? You won't be moving all over. You won't be wavering too much from your true north, right?
Right.
And so I like that, how he shared that, and then it's not just monetary, although that is a very important element. But when you
Right.
know your worth, then you have the capabilities to negotiate appropriately. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it's very important that you really dig down and you find out, hey, these are things that I value. And because of that, and these are things that I have the capability to do. And because of that, this is what I require, right? I like the quote he had in the book. He stated, this is how you become a magnet for greatness,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you know your core values, right? And you start behaving like them, you talking like them, you looking like greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get into your brain that you want to be great, right? You start attracting greatness. You'll start getting into environments where high net worth people come up and they start talking to you. Right. And so I like the story that he shared. He stated about Bob Proctor. He stated he had first met Bob Proctor and he had thought Bob Proctor had told him, man, you undervaluing yourself. And now we're going to speak about our worth from a financial perspective, a monetary perspective. And he was like, yeah. He said, I thought Bob told me to charge $20,000 per gig, right? And he was like, so during that first time that I saw him, he was telling me I was undervaluing myself, and I could have sworn he told me to charge $20,000 per gig. So that's what I started doing. He said 3 or 4 months later, girl, this is the funniest part in his book. I don't know. I hollered. I was like, this man is a. He said, I ran into Bob Proctor again at a conference, and he pulled me to the side and asked me how my work was coming. He said, at this time, I thanked him for his advice and told him I had taken his recommendation of asking for $20,000 a gig. He said, someone to charge $20,000? I said, you should charge no less than $20,000. And he said, I had gotten so focused on the number that I hadn't heard what he was really saying. And he said, in this particular, there was a learning here. In this particular exchange, what he learned from that was that there's really no ceiling, and from that was at the moment he realized, oh my God, his mind was blown because he just never had anybody volunteer information like that. And it opened up, because of that one error of exchange, if you will, it opened up a whole new world for him. And as such, this is how he became a magnet for greatness, right? So don't undervalue yourself. Know your worth, and the way you don't undervalue yourself is to know what your values are. Take that time to go through and say, this is what I value, and these are the principles that I'm going to stand on to ensure that I am aligned with my morals and values. Right. All right. Any additional that you wanted to share there for principle number 4? All right, so let's jump into principle number 5. Being persistent, focused, and disciplined will secure positive changes in your life. Was that your quote?
It's not mine, but that's what I guess you could call it my quote, because I did just extract it from what he was saying at the end of his.
Because I was like, where he say that at? But I know throughout. I know, like, she must have made that one up. But I like it.
That is basically what he was saying, though.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
yeah, he basically was saying, it wasn't without dedication to what he believed and what he knew he was going to do. Think about the times that he moved, like when he moved from Alabama to Michigan, and then when he encountered like a change of leadership at Michigan State, and then they no longer needed his program. What was the name of his program again?
Advantage. The Advantage.
The Advantage. And then the new leadership was, questioning the value of the program now, but he knew what the value was because he had started it before he had, deployed it at the university.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He had actually made it like an activity, like maybe through the student union or something. I don't remember all the details.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But anyway, like being persistent from that aspect, that is what basically like propelled him forward.
Mm-hmm.
From that point on, like he just never gave up. Like, I want to help kids. I know that I have the power and I have the easy connection. I can influence these kids to do, what they need to do. And he even went into the statistics of like minority. I don't know if you remember that part where he was going into the statistics of the graduation rate among
yes, and how there's that. Yes, absolutely.
And how it's structured that way in all actuality
there's a percentage, and they know when you're gonna fail.
To know when I'm gonna
fail, and put nothing in place,
but not have nothing in place
to counteract
make sure that I don't fail.
Yes,
but
that's the beauty. That was the beauty of his program. I was like, I love you, man. I love you. Because how often do we do that? And let me tell you this, okay? We analyze everything. We are like little robots, okay? This whole entire world, the government, we analyze everything and can pinpoint, guarantee when I'm about to fart. Okay? No, I'm telling you. No, seriously.
Not down to that science.
Down to when I'm about to pass test. Okay. So let me tell you this. For a college or a university to know, to have an understanding that at this point, based on what we know about this student coming in, they're going to drop out sophomore year, second semester in April.
Right. That threw me off. I was like, what?
And not have no type of program in place that helps to prevent that. That just tells you something right then and there.
The system is what it is.
It's a whole fraud mess. It is a whole hot mess. Because how dare you make money off of my failure, knowing. Right. I mean, I was a bit hot about that. I was like, boy, let me tell you something. But and his program that he established, the Advantage, to help combat that. I said, you are a beautiful spirit. I love your spirit. I love who you are, what you aim to do, and carry on, my brother. And I'm happy that, he did not allow Michigan to derail his progress.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you can come in here all you want. He stayed on campus, mind you.
Right.
He's like, oh no, I'm gonna stay here. And I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing.
No, but you know what happens? Right? Is they attempt to railroad you to steal your idea. Because when they put out false information about you or make something up so then now your ideas, now what you came up with is somehow
ours. We created that. We created that. It's ours. It's
but somehow now that what you designed is like what happened to Kanye. It's no longer credible. Your shoes ain't even credible. Them flight shoes, space flight shoes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that was very difficult to digest. And um I do hope that what we share here today, that someone is listening. And with this knowledge that we do have, that we become better at being proactive, which is the whole premise of this, because we tend to teach to be reactive
We do.
in almost everything that we do. And when I heard that a university that's getting $40,000 a head for
55 something, yeah.
yeah, I mean a head for a student, knows when you're going to fail and has no type of program, putting forth no effort to combat that. It's disheartening, and it shows who we are as people.
It's discouraging. Is Michigan State a HBCU?
No,
it's just a state school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just, that was just reckless behavior, a whole hot mess. And all these schools know that, and they do that, and they could implement programs, but to make a conscientious choice not to, and then try and kick him, girl. Okay, you guys, I'm sorry, we got stuck on that one. All right, but let me see here. The principle, of course, that I garnered from this one was number one, aspire to be committed. Make sure that you're giving 110+% in all that you do, and love yourself enough to always give and go above and beyond to being the best version of yourself. Because as we shared here, being persistent, focused, and disciplined, it will definitely secure positive changes in your life. All right, so that was the top 5. Thank you so much for joining us with our episode of Proactive is the Way. As I shared before, you guys, we only cut, Tiffany, what would you do? Maybe 25% of the book? I mean, not even. Okay.
We didn't cover.
We just gave you a snapshot of all the goodness that is really in this book. And as I mentioned before, definitely 5 stars from me. I truly appreciate and value who Eric Thomas is, being vulnerable and brave to share his story with us and encourage us and get us on the right track. Yeah. So, all right, folks.
Or keep us on the right track.
I mean, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help guide each other, right? Keep us on the right path, right? Within our journey. And reading books like this definitely helps us to do that when we do it and we're proactive in our approach to doing so, into self-improvement. All right, you guys. So thank you so much for joining us. Of course, before we head out, I hope you're ready, Tiffany, because where would we be without music? Can I tell you, it's so funny. You remember when you was like, you be researching, Toya. So they had at my job, we had to listen to music and know who the artist was and stuff. I was like, I'm not going to win. I researched my music. I did not win. But anyways, I love the game though. I was like, oh, they're doing music programs. It was really fun. But anyway, so here, where would we be without music? Tiff will, of course, share her music choice this week. What did you choose?
Lean on Me.
Good. Okay. Do you want to give more to that, or you just gonna say lean on me?
Just lean on me. Listen to the lyrics.
Okay.
I don't want to sing them.
Why you don't want to sing?
But how does that's you can apply that to yourself. Those lyrics.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Lean on me. All right, you all, join us in a couple of weeks as we launch our next series, Flow. This idea kept popping up in the books we've been reading, actually, a couple times. And of course, the continuous visual of reading about getting into a state of flow. What does that actually mean? It really sparked my curiosity. So I pondered, what does it mean? How can I better understand this so that I can apply it within my life or help you apply it within your life? How can we use this notion of flow to position ourselves to be more productive and excel in all that we do? So we do look forward to you joining us. Of course, in preparation for our discussions, we have included in the description where you can pick up a copy of the book. To access all replays or learn more about Kinky Knots Cafe, Proactive is the Way, please visit www.kinkyknotscafe.com. Proactive is the way, my friends. Take good care.